Our goal today is to create a website that logs the players that go into a game. We will also log their account age. Start by enabling HTTP service with the HTTP enabled property. Create a new script. We will connect a function to the player added event so that we know when a player enters the game. Since this is a short script, we don't need a variable to reference HTTP service, but I create one anyway. The post async method will send an HTTP post request to our website. This method takes 3 parameters. The first is the website URL, the second is the data being posted, and the third is the content type. Our content type is application/xwww form URL encoded, but this is an enum so we can put 2. Make sure you know how to do a bit of string manipulation before adding the second argument. Let's wrap this in the pcall function, because if your website is offline when you use post async, your script will break. Now let's use the print function so we know if pcall failed or succeeded. Let's check the output. This is not a surprise because HTTP service only works in server test mode. Before using server test mode, let's add something to our script so that our output is more verbose. We will simply print a message if pcall succeeded. This time it should work.
You're now listening to A-Rod Music.
I almost forgot to fix this. Here is the XWWW form URL encoded format for future reference. In the next steps you will need a web host with PHPMyAdmin available. I recommend freewebhostingarea.com for beginners. Your web host should give you a username and password for your MySQL database. Use the same username and password for PHPMyAdmin. Let's go ahead and create the SQL database. This one will have a simple structure with one table, good for beginners. Here is a column called num. It will auto increment so each row is numbered. As I said at the beginning of this video, we are logging the name and account age of players, so we also need columns for those. Our 3-column table has been added. Let me demonstrate how to use PHPMyAdmin to add, delete and edit rows. There is currently 1 row. I will change a value. I will copy the row. I will delete a row, and we will move on. We only need one web page. It must be called index.php or it will not load by default. I will start with some standard HTML tags even though they are not really needed. This web page does not need to be aesthetically pleasing and I will not attempt to make it so. I am using the brackets text editor with dark theme enabled if you are interested in getting it yourself. The tags with question marks are called PHP tags, and they are required. When we receive HTTP post variables, PHP puts them in an array for us. We will simplify it further by creating variables called name and age. Here I misspell post, which is supposed to start with an underscore, but I fix it later in the video. Now we are creating a connection to the MySQL database. I will be using object-oriented style throughout this video, but procedural is also available. Your MySQL database should be on localhost unless your hosting provider tells you otherwise. The next two parameters are the credentials you use to log into PHPMyAdmin, and last is the database name. Next we will check for errors. If there is an error, we will display it on the web page. Now we will run an SQL query that returns rows from our table called main. If you are unfamiliar with SQL, go to w3schools.com for more help. The next if statement with the while loop inside it will display data from the database on our web page. We could use getAsync on Roblox to get this information if we wanted. If you are unfamiliar with any methods or properties, you can find documentation on php.net. Concatenating two strings in PHP uses one period as opposed to two in Lua. Let's test it. Let's add a row. Let's add another row. Remember the HTTP post variables from earlier? Now we will use them to insert new rows. This will be the last SQL statement we write. It's working just as I expected. Let's use Fiddler to send an HTTP post request, very similar to how the post async function of HttpService would. We just added a user with account age 1000 using Fiddler. Now the final test, using server mode in Roblox Studio. Success. Remember that my goal was to show you how to use HttpService, but you need to find your own reasons to use it.